In this video, we're going to be talking about one of our family's favorite keto, low-carb meals. It's shrimp with cauliflower and noodles. Low-carb, like I said, not strict keto. If you like strict keto, you probably won't like this recipe, but you could modify it a little bit, and I'll tell you how that you could modify it a little bit and still have strict keto probably. So, stay tuned. This is a wonderful meal. One of our favorites. We make this at least a couple times a month and have for several months. It's delicious. So stick with us. Like I said, welcome back to Putt Nuts. Here we are in the beginning. You take your shrimp, of course, you peel them, devein them, whatnot, and you put them in the skillet with some butter. And what I like to add myself is I like to add some cayenne pepper and onion and garlic and a little bit of Italian seasoning and some black pepper, a squirt of sriracha. Give it a nice little spice. That's not necessary, but I like what it does for the shrimp. I like the extra kick in the end. So you just got to keep a stir on them, make sure they get done, but you don't want to overcook your shrimp. As soon as they're all pink, you make sure they're done. You're going to want to shut the fire off so as not to overcook the shrimp, because they are going to cook a little more later, but you don't want to over fry them or it'll make them tough. No one wants a tough shrimp, like Danny DeVito on steroids. Oh, then what we have over here is some water boiling, getting ready, because you also want to make sure that you take my homemade low-carb noodles and boil them ahead of time. So let's go over here and take a look at the noodles. Never mind the floor. I didn't sweep before I started making this. And these are the noodles that we make. I vary the recipe a little bit every time. If you want them to be softer, add a little more water and, a little less egg. Instead of pure egg, you add some water for the last egg. Maybe a little bit of baking powder, about a quarter to a half a teaspoon for a batch like this, and it'll soften them up a little bit. Now, if you want your noodles to be real soft, you add even more water and about a half a tablespoon of baking powder, maybe 2 teaspoons. Now, when you put the noodles in the water, you want to kind of spread them out, because otherwise you can see here, they tend to stick together. You got to break them apart. When you make them, you got to spread them out. Otherwise, they'll all slowly sink down and clump together into one big hairy clump. You don't want that. So I get me a nice handful. Normally I do this closer together, but for the video's sake, this is what I'm doing. But then when you put it in here, you don't just drop in the whole clump. You kind of try to spread it out, and usually I stir it between handfuls just so that it doesn't stick together too much. Actually, once they're in the water and you spread them out a little bit, they don't stick at all anymore. Now see how the butter's clarified? That tells you you're about ready to turn your fire off under the shrimp. You want that butter to be clarified. You got all the juice cooked out of them. I don't know if you saw that, but I shut the fire off. Okay, back for more noodles. Now what we're just going to do is continue getting noodles and putting them in there. I personally like them cut up in smaller pieces. My daughter likes to leave them long. I tried to cut these, but this particular batch was a little wetter than usual, and they were real sticky. So I tried to cut them, it just basically pressed them together, and I didn't want that. So like I said, once you put them in the water and stir them around, they do seem to come apart. So it's not a huge deal, I guess. And watch your noodles carefully, because these noodles will boil over just like any other kind of noodle. And sometimes I just put the noodles right in with the sauce and the shrimp and everything, and they do okay that way. As a matter of fact, that little bit of keto flour on the bottom tends to thicken the sauce up a little bit more, and I kind of like that. But I also like to make sure they get a chance to boil for 15 or 20 minutes and let them get as tender as they're going to get. So I've got the recipe for those noodles on my channel. Like I said, I've amended it some since then. I've made dozens of batches of them and tried different little things this way and that, and Go back and listen to what I said. So now we cut up the cauliflower, and I have a video on how to cut up vegetables, and you can go to that and see how to cut up the cauliflower the easiest way, and a lot of other vegetables too. Now on this, the ingredients, I realize it has some soybean oil. The ragu is the lowest one in carbs. Now, what you could do, like I said at the beginning, instead of using jarred Alfredo, you could just use whipping cream, butter, and Parmesan cheese. Now, I like to add some whipping cream, butter, and Parmesan cheese on top of the ragu. The ragu has a nice Alfredo flavor all by itself, so it gives it a nice flavor. And once you break it down to separate, each person's individual portion, you're not eating that much soybean oil. Because when I eat soybean oil, if I eat too much, my knees let me know, and this doesn't cause my knees to have any problems. So you don't really get enough of it to cause a problem. At least I don't. Everything in moderation. Some people are so concerned about not having a single drop of soybean oil. For my life up until 2 years ago when I started keto, I ate all kinds of soybean oil and canola oil and corn oil and other vegetable oils that cause inflammation. I didn't know what was causing it, but I had it, and it didn't kill me. So a little tiny bit here or there, it's not going to kill you. If it's too much and it causes you pain, like I said, make your own Alfredo. Now you add a little bit of water with that, and you put a lid on it, and you start it out on high heat, get it going. Keep your noodles going on a low heat so that they don't boil over. But you want to keep them boiling too. And after a while you get this. Cauliflower cooks down, some of the moisture comes out of it. You've got a nice sauce bubbling away under the lid. Then you want to take the lid off when you get to this stage because you want it to thicken. You want it to reduce. So you let it simmer, you let it thicken and reduce down. And when it gets to about where it's thickened up to the point where you're ready to eat it, but you don't want it to be so thick that you can't spread the juice over the noodles, it's time for these. You scoop these noodles up out of here, and you put them on top, and then you stir the noodles in while they're still runny enough, and you let it simmer for another 5 or 10 minutes with the noodles in the Alfredo sauce. That's what we're going to be doing here, I believe. Look at that nice bubbly sauce. You just, like I said, you spread your noodles out over the top. Takes a little bit of time. You spread them out. Make them nice and even over the surface. Now, things you could do with this, if you prefer, you could throw broccoli in the mix instead of cauliflower, or with the cauliflower. You could put some spinach in there. Although that doesn't sound like it would be very good, it might be. Spinach and Alfredo is pretty good. Might, put some spinach in there. Maybe cut up a small carrot in there. Yeah, I know carrots have a few carbs, but nothing to be alarmed about. It's not like you're eating white bread and washing it down with soda pop. One medium carrot has 5 to 7 carbs. So if you take one small carrot and cut it up in little pieces, you're going to have 3, maybe 4 carbs added to the whole batch. That's negligible. Now you get it all stirred in, like I said. You let it simmer for a few more minutes. Let some of that flavor of the Alfredo soak into the noodles and reduce it down a little bit more. And you're ready to eat. You scoop it up out of there into a bowl. It sort of comes out like soup. Hi, I'm Putnut, and if you enjoyed that, please check this out. More low-carb cooking and reviews for you to enjoy. And if you like the channel, click right here to subscribe. And thank you very much.